connection in 64 BC with Pompey, and that many Syrian refugees actually were enlisted into the Roman army and brought with them, kept their religious rites and other faith and ceremonies that came with them, including Sol Invictus, as you just seen. But one Roman emperor I want to spend some time on and dive deep on him, his wife, and his lineage is Septimius Severus, which played a pivotal role when it came to Sol Invictus and installing it to its core into Rome. 11 was a Roman born 11 April 145 CE through 4 February 211 CE. Was a Roman emperor from 193 to 211. He was born in Leptis Magna in the Roman province of Africa. Yes, he was actually an African. As a young man, he advanced through the customary succession of offices under the reigns of Marcus Aurelius and Commandos. Severus seized power after the death of the Emperor Pertinax in 193 during the year of the Five Emperors. He proclaimed as Augustus co-emperors his other son Carcilla in 198 and his younger son Geta in 209, both born of his second wife Julia Domna, who we're gonna actually look into and dive deep into. Severus traveled to Britain in 208 CE, strengthening Hadrian's Wall and reoccupying the Antonian Wall. In 209, he invaded Chaldean, modern Scotland, with an army of 50,000 men. But his ambition were cut short when he fell fatally ill of an infectious disease in late 210 CE. He died in early 211 at Ilbecombe, today York, England, and was succeeded by his sons, who were advised by their mother and powerful widow, Julia Domna, thus founding the Seventh Dynasty. It was the last dynasty of the Roman Empire before the crisis of the 3rd century. And as you see here, this is the Seventh Dynasty with Septimius Severus and Julia Domna, his two sons right underneath them, and the extended family that he had. As you see, Julia Domna's father is where we're gonna look into closely also, as he was an Arab high priest. So we'll get into that soon. So now, when it comes to Septimius Severus and the early worship of sun worship in Rome, we have to dive deep into his second wife, Julia Domna, and her father, Julius Basinus of Syria, for he was the high priest of Homs, Emesa, in Syria, as I'll show you all here. Julius Basinus, born in the second half of the 2nd century, died 217 CE, was an Arab high priest of Agabellus at the Temple of the Sun, like I just said to you guys, early sun worship, in Emesa, Syria, where the solar deity was worshipped in the shape of a black stone. Now, that's interesting. I'm gonna tread back on this, the black stone, remember that now. The name Agabellus derives from a Semitic word for God, and Gable, an Arabic word of mountain, resulting in the god of the mountain. Remember that also. We're gonna tread back into it. You're gonna find something really interesting with that. The manifestation of the deity, Basinus was a member of the royal family of Emesa, modern Homs in Syria, which was a part of the Arab aristocracy in this client kingdom of the Roman Empire. As we all know, the Pompey made this area into Providence, which I explained earlier. The beginning of his priesthood is unknown, but by 187 he was a high priest at Emesa. Basinus was a son of Julius, and his paternal uncle was Julius Aprica, who served as a Primiplerus, a former leading centurion. And here's the connection when it comes to Severus. from future Emperor Lucius Septimius had visited Emesa based on a promising horoscope that he would find his future wife in Syria. But what's so interesting is the black stone, like I said I was going to segue back into. The black stone of Agabus in the Emesa Temple of the Sun. So this is what got me thinking here, guys. Black stone, Arab, Israel. What's the only thing that can come into mind? The black stone of Mecca, of course. So it says here, the black stone is a rock set into the eastern corner of the Kaaba, the ancient building in the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. It is revered by Muslims as an Islamic relic, which according to Muslim traditions date back to the time of Adam and Eve. The stone was venerated at the Kaaba in pre-Islamic pagan times. Remember, before Christianity came into it, everybody was pagan, as I said earlier. According to Islamic tradition, it was set intact in the Kaaba's wall by the Islamic prophet Muhammad in 605 CE, 5 years before his first revelation. Since then, it has been broken into fragments and is now cemented into a silver frame in the side of the Kaaba. Its physical appearance is that of a fragmented dark rock, polished smooth by the hands of pilgrims. Islamic traditions hold that it fell from heaven as a guide for Adam and Eve to build an altar. So now I found that very interesting after finding the connections with this rock being worshipped as a item for a sun deity. So I looked deeper into that and wanted to look into the history and tradition, and then I found this. The black stone was held in reverence well before Islam. It had long been associated with the Kaaba, which was built in the pre-Islamic period and was a site of pilgrimage of Nabateans, who visited the shrine once a year to perform their pilgrimage. The Kaaba held 360 idols of the Meccan gods, polytheistic of course, everybody was back in the day. The Semitic culture of the Middle East had a tradition of using unusual stones to mark places of worship. So as I highlighted, what does that remind you of? Remember this picture that associated with Julius Basinus, the high priest of Syria in Mecca, a phenomenon which is reflected in the Hebrew Bible as well as the Quran. While bowing, worshiping, and praying to such sacred objects is also described in the Tanakh and idolatrous, and was subject to prophetic rebuke. The meteorite origin theory of the black stone has seen it linked by some writers to the meteorite which was placed in worship in the Greek temple of Artemis. So there goes another connection with the black stone and going all the way back to the Greeks, adapting it to their own culture. That's very interesting, guys. The Kaaba has been associated with fertility rites of Arabia. Some writers remark on the apparent similarity of the black stone and its frame to an external female genitalia. Yeah, I know, guys. A lot of comparison, but let's get into it. However, the silver frame was placed on the black stone to secure the fragments after the original stone was broken. So I want to stop there and actually go back to the stone, as the Middle East had a tradition of using unusual stones to mark places of worship. And as you see, this word, Baidilis, are sacred stones that were supposedly endowed with life. When I get from there, I get this. Baidilis, also Beitel, Bethel, or Betul, from Semitic Bet El, house of God. And if you remember what I was saying earlier, house of God. Interesting also. Compare Bethel, Betel, or El, are sacred stones that were supposedly endowed with life or gave access to a deity. According to ancient sources, at least some of these objects of worship were meteorites, which were dedicated to the gods or revered as symbols of the gods themselves. And I want to segue down here where it says they had a role in most regions of the ancient Near East and Greek and Roman religion, solidifying the connections with the Greeks and the Romans as well as other cultures. And as I go down here, I can see in the Hebrew Bible, Bethel, meaning house of God, which we just read up top right here. El, Semitic meaning, meant house of God. I'll get to El in a second, but I want to say way back here, meaning house of God, is where Jacob had his vision of Jacob's ladder. Coming upon the place at nightfall, the book of Genesis tells the reader that he laid his head on a stone and had the vision while sleeping. Here's a depiction of Jacob's dream sleeping on a stone at Bethel by Jose de Ribera. So you guys got to remember, when it comes to certain words, you got to go back to its original root. That's where it comes with etymology. And when it comes to ancient history, it's really crucial to have etymology on your side, because certain words have different definitions in certain languages, as you all would assume so, and all know. I assume my viewers are different ethnicities, so it's really crucial that you go back to the root word and where the word stems from. But to show you the ancient Greek similarity, it says here, in ancient Greek religion and mythology, the term was specifically applied to the Omphalius of Delphi. The stone was supposed to have been swallowed by Kronos, and if you all know Greek mythology, you know about Kronos being really feared about one of his children dethroning him in the future, so he was really afraid of them and actually tried to devour them. Who feared misfortune from his own children and mistake for his infant son Zeus, from whom it had been substituted by Gaia. This stone was carefully preserved at Delphi, anointed with oil every day, and on festive occasions covered with raw wool. Now, when it comes to the Romans, it says here, in Rome there was a stone effigy of Cybele, brought from Paesinus in Asia Minor in 206 BC. The emperor Agabellus, who reigned from 218 until 222, we're going to get into Agabellus, that's part of this review. It was probably a teenager for all his reign, came from Syria, and was already a hereditary high priest of the cult of the god Agabellus there. Once made emperor, he brought the gods Bethel to Rome with the great ceremony and built the Agobellium to house it. Seems to have been a conical meteorite. And as I segue back into house of God, and another word that defined that, I pick El. El is a Northwest Semitic word meaning God or deity, or referring to any of multiple major ancient Near Eastern deities. As I described to you guys one more time, I just can't stress this, because I find how people think that most of these cultures were monotheistic, which they weren't. They were polytheistic in their ways. Irera Ilia represents the Prydic form in Old Akkadian and in Amorite. The word is derived from the Proto-Semitic meaning God. Specific deities known as El include the supreme god of the ancient Canaanite religion, and the supreme god of the East Semitic speakers in Mesopotamia's early dynastic period. And if you've seen my other book review, The Hebrew Goddess, you'll see where El had a consort named Asherah, which you'll see here, consort Asherah, and I explained how in depth the early Canaanites were polytheistic, not monotheistic, and believed that El had a wife, Asherah. So if you want to give that video a view, you you should, because it'll give you a lot more context, as I've already talked about this, and how I'm segueing back to one of my first book reviews and showing you the connections, which is very interesting, if I say so the most. But I wanted to show you this last input here too. It says here in the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew form appears in Latin letters in standard Hebrew transcription as El, and in the Tiberian Hebrew transcription as El. Elia is a generic word for God that could be used for any God. Once again, that could be used for any God, including Hadad, Moloch, or Yahweh. That's very interesting. So now, after what I just showed you, let's take a step back now. I mean, I just showed you the connection with the black stone being an item worship for a sun deity, and the connections where it comes to the black stone in Mecca with the Hebrew Bible, and that the black stone was used as the Islamic relic. So what is all this? Like, I tell people, you have to do critical thinking. When you find some breadcrumbs and you see connections, you gotta put it together. That's why you have to research all these cultures around this time in antiquity, to the Romans, to the Greeks, to the Persians, to the Egyptians, and then how we see the house of God transforms into El when it comes to the Semitic languages, with the connections with the Phoenicians. It's just like mind-boggling. It's just like, what is this? Like, do any of the Islamic people that go with the faith know that their black stone that they, now I want to say worship, but use it as a religious relic, stems from a sun deity? Like, do they know this? I mean, like, it's right there. That's what I say. You gotta do the research, people. I can't make this up. Like, I feel like sometimes people just go at a certain range, stop there, but they won't go fully into it. Whether it comes to their bias or not wanting to see the opposite of their ideals. But like I said, this is just crazy. But yeah, I wanted to bring this all to your attention to show you that the information is there. You guys literally look. I even have the book. Look, I have the book. So just saying. And the internet's there. We are in the age of Aquarius, people. The information age. All this information is there. You just got to take the time to look for it. But I digress. But anywho, there's so much I can show you guys, and I'm gonna have to make this review into a two-part. There's just so much information that I want to deliver to you guys, because this information is really damning right now. That all this information stems to roots were all the way back to paganism, and that it's stemming to this day that they're still doing the same thing. And but hey, anywho, thank you guys again for taking the time to watch this video. Part 2 will be coming up soon. But yeah, let me know, did you guys know about this, about the black stones being a part of the Greek and the Romans? It's all the way back to the Phoenicians being a part of their pantheon. But anywho, thank you for watching the channel, and part 2 is on the way. Take care, guys.